beside the hemisphere. And that it's almost like there's no space involved. They just think something happening at a great distance, and it does. But because I don't think physical spaceships could travel with any reliability for trillions of miles through space. It'd have to be almost an instantaneous travel. And if that's true, it's a dated concept to think that machines are actually involved. It appears to me, outside of maybe something this alternate society or alternate civilization may be learning or adapting to with physical spaceships. But the actual UFO phenomena, it seems to be limitless. There's no locality, because you couldn't travel through those vast distances of space in a mechanical machine or a contrivance. It'd have to be almost like thought travel. Or something very similar to it.
Well, that or that's why I was mentioning, portals, going maybe through a black hole, and you could go through vast space instantly. I mean, we don't know yet because you know what, we're still little babies, in the crib, compared to whatever is out there.
Yeah, and. It seems as mankind, Jacques Vallée kind of got into that. It's almost as if the phenomena is leading us on, training us in some ways to think differently or advance in our scientific overview. It's like it's almost like a teaching mechanism. That's in control, and rather than we're dealing with physical, spaceships. The physical spaceship theory is becoming less and less popular. The more as the years go ahead, and Robbie Graham points it out in the book of Reframing UFO Debate. There's a new science coming on board with the advent of quantum physics and new different concepts. It may be we develop a lot of these discoveries. Clinton or Shelton Peirce wrote a book called Cracking the Cosmic Egg. And that was back in the 70s, I believe he wrote that book. But he hypothesized how once our science progresses, because it may be that we're inventing what we think. One time there was no astronauts, asteroids. We couldn't see many asteroids. And somebody hypothesized, well, there must be some bodies in a certain area of the solar system. It's just mathematically necessary, So eventually they discovered one asteroid, and then they discovered another asteroid. And he said before too long, all of a sudden all these asteroids start appearing out there. And his concept was, once you think of things, once you collectively think of things, and it becomes accepted by society, it happens. It's almost like we materialize discoveries. And that could be a very interesting aspect of the UFO phenomenon. Maybe we're actually creating the reality around us.
Manifesting it, in other words.
Yeah.
It could be. Then again, with quantum, physics, I have had a scientist on recently, and, he, again, keeps thinking, or kept on stressing, that we could be nothing more than in the metrics, like nothing like more than a computer program. But then, you think about that doesn't make logical sense. But who knows what's going on? I do think that, there's, depending on going back to it, was it Big Rock, in the 40s, where Howard Hughes was involved in it. A whole bunch of people were involved where they would go out to this area out in the desert and UFOs would appear at night. And it seems like when you get a group of people, and they're all wanting to see UFOs, it kind of manifests.
Yeah. Well, that kind of points out what I just said, that we may be manifesting this phenomena. We may be manifesting any phenomena if we put our consciousness to it. But then again, what's consciousness? Is it us or is it something outside of us? But it seems like we're actually inventing these things. We think it, therefore it is.
Yeah, I just hope one day, Steve, we don't get a UFO crashing in a populated area, and then the government's going to have to sit there and come clean. Yeah,
I don't know. I find based on what we just said, the nature of reality and everything, it's like, why is there such a thing as crashed UFOs? Why do they crash? And why do they seem so physical? But we don't know for sure what the Roswell UFO was.
We don't. And, I'm going to refer to another guest. He wrote a book about, I can't, it happened in Texas around the 1890s. I can't think about it. A UFO supposedly crashed on a water tower. Aurora.
Yeah, and Aurora, right.
Yeah. Now, the guy who wrote the book has been on my show about 3 times, and we were talking about UFOs in general. His father was a police dispatcher in the town he grew up, and they got a report one night of supposedly a UFO landed or touched down at their local hospital parking lot. Now, they sent out their police and the fire department, and the L got out there. By the time they got there, there was no UFO, but there was like this 30-foot, maybe 50-foot, I can't remember, circle in the asphalt, still burning with like mercury droplets around it everywhere. Now, they kind of, secured the area. Since there was no UFO, they all went back home. The story was in the morning, all of a sudden, the police department goes there to check out, the area again and make sure it's still secure. The whole parking lot was re-blacktopped in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Now,
well, certainly.
Now,
somebody's trying to cover it up. That's for sure.
Now, what makes the story a little bit more stranger, an area 30 miles away from this town. And now I did verify before he came on the show that they did have in the 60s, they did supposedly have a UFO supposedly landed, in the parking lot. That was a little bit record in the newspaper. But 30 miles or so away from there, there's an area that was a lake there. And people, like the next day, saw a UFO come out of the lake and then head out in the sky and disappear. And I just sometimes wonder if that UFO, maybe for some reason it had a malfunction, it overheated, whatever it had to do. It landed, touched down for, a minute or 2 or 3, then took back off and found the lake and went into the lake to make repairs or whatever. But there was, again, report the following morning of people seeing this UFO come out of the lake. Coincident, it was only 30 miles away from this town.
I don't know. It would seem to me that maybe we're not dealing with one type of phenomena, because it seems to be, rather than just say it's all archetypes or symbols of the mind, it could be there's different origins, different aspects of, there may be different, there may actually be physical ETs involved. I don't know. It's hard to say because it seems to be such a diversity of phenomena that do strange things.
Well,
there was an art.
I was going to say, all the time you were, finding information about UFOs, right? At all those years you were digging into information. Wasn't there some cases that really stick in your mind that it just blew you away that you couldn't debunk at all?
Yeah, they've had several cases like that. Cora Wincher, I think's her name. She was coming across a trestle outside of where she lived, the town she lived in, and this UFO came down behind her and even came across the trestle with her, I believe, and tried to grab her car, or at least it butted up against her car, and I think they were trying to lift her. Later on, they found the dents, like smooth curved dents in her car, and the best they could determine that there was no in the situation she didn't cause the dents, and the dents were not normal dents. They were like scoops, smooth scooped areas, and the study group, the investigators for study group, pretty well said, yeah, it seemed to be some kind of mechanical craft that came down and tried to attach her car, and then it didn't exactly finish the job or something. And yeah, there's a number of cases like that. So it makes me think, there was an article written in Fate magazine many years ago, and I can't remember the author, nothing, but he was pointing out in areas where there's an unusual UFO sighting, investigators never asked to canvass the area to see if other different unusual phenomena is going on. And in fact, in some cases where that was done, there was a UFO sighting. Then about the same time, more or less, there may have been a cattle mutilation somewhere. At the same time, more or less, someone was having a haunting in their house and poltergeist activity. Same time, somewhere in the general area, at the same time, someone was having a seance episode. So we don't know where what is really going on in certain hot areas. When I say hot areas, I mean where a major event has happened, because we don't know what other activities are going on that may be connected with that activity, Or conversely, somebody has a demon possession in their home. Maybe there's a UFO sighting not far away. You can slice it up any way you want. But it's interesting, that it seems to be, in effect, they're saying there's a web of activity, and that we're really not cognizant of everything that's going on at that time when a lot of UFO sightings are happening, or other psychic phenomena is happening. There may be a web of connection between them all, which would be a clue to the phenomena. But I don't know. I kind of feel that maybe there's different things happening, separate things. There may have been there's a government, some projects going on. Maybe that there's psychic phenomena going on. And a lot of what John Keel called ultra-terrestrials. And there may be some kind of actual visitation going on. I don't know where it would be from. It could be, to a large extent, we have, you were talking about the space program. It could be part of the already existing alternate reality or alternate breakaway society. Remember Gary McKinnon? He broke into the government computer system and found out about what's been termed the solar warden.
Oh, yeah. I do vaguely remember that, yes.
Yeah. And he to this date, he maintains and he wasn't able to copy it off, make an image copy because it happened so quickly. But he swears that he saw things that would be highly indicative that our government already has a space program.
Well, I think maybe we do and have for years. I think the technology, what you see that our Air Force is flying, is basically maybe 100 years outdated. But, I don't think again, it goes back how they have treated the American public